Hancock County Commissioners. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order for the Hancock County Commissioners September 24th special meeting. Do we have adoption of the minutes?
No, I'm going to move to adopt the agenda as published.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
No, just a minute.
Yep.
It's going to be under that title. It's already there. We'll do it under the purchase and sale agreement.
All right. So we're here for the public hearing on the proposed 2025 Hancock County budget estimates, including the unorganized territory budget. Do we have any public comment?
So I guess I'll gavel it for you, John. Well,
Thank you.
Public hearing.
You see
I'll hear them, but is there any comment from the public? I don't know if you can see everybody
I'm
from
not seeing anything.
anybody from home.
I'm not seeing anything. All right.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing.
I don't think you guys voted on
All right. So now we have the 2025 Hancock County budget estimates.
John,
Thank you.
Brittany just pointed out that we didn't vote on adopting the agenda.
Oh, sorry about that. All right. All those in favor of the agenda as it stands?
I guess.
Okay,
I seconded the motion.
you did. Okay.
No, I'm going to.
Okay, so we're voting on it, so aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, it's a little awkward with it.
A little.
Yeah.
Because that first meeting.
All right. Now we're going to review the budget estimates.
Okay, Michael, I don't know, do you have anything to speak to?
I mean, I can. Did you want to make a motion first, what you want to do, or do you want me just to start?
Well, I'll make the motion. I'm gonna move to approve the proposed 2025 Hancock County budget estimates as presented.
Yeah.
Second motion?
So just in
Discussion.
terms of discussion point, that there are a couple items which in your budget we had discussed, one primarily being the new FMLA that's going to go into effect here, and then we'll have to start withholding up to 1% anyway. They're still getting information, and there's changes in the legislative law that created that to start with. Right now, they're being proposed. So we're still trying to ascertain exactly what the status of that document is going to be, or what that rule and law is going to be. But we likely will have to go back to the BAC and just make them aware of that, and probably come up with a figure for them to update the budget, which won't appear in yours because it's a moving target at the moment. But we know at the end of the day, it'd be 1%, whether that's 1% full by the county paying it for everybody, or whether that's a kind of like 0.5% match. I guess that's to be determined. But so that's really an increase. It could be like another $80,000, give or take, depending on the payroll and everything else that goes through, and what percentage it is funded by. And then we might have a couple other little payroll adjustments that we may have to present to the BAC. But in terms of the work that you've done up to this point, I think the budget that you have is the best one you can give based on the status of where things are at the moment.
So Michael, right now is 1% already added to it, or no?
No, so that's not in the budget. That's what we'd have to recommend or go back to the BAC and suggest be added in, depending upon what we might decide in an upcoming meeting. So
Okay.
And the reason for my motion is I studied that a little bit, the information that Michael sent, and, you know, the response from our benefits, folks, I forgot their name. Katie Benefits. I really don't, at this point, it would just be a stab, and I think we're better off, as Michael stated, just waiting to see what's actually enacted. If anything is, well, it looks like it will be, but right now, I think we're better off pushing forward with what we got and then letting BAC or us later if it doesn't come in during the BAC process.
Right now, it would be $56,000 according to the personal services proposed budget.
There is no amount calculated in for that 1%.
Right. I'm just saying that that's what it would be today, given that personal services proposed budget. That's the one thing that BAC isn't going to have a lot of effect on, because a lot of that's driven by contracts.
But the overall total payroll for the county is about 7 million. So
Well, yeah, but you include benefits and everything?
that's the total payroll. The new tax would be just like adding FICA, Medicare, and
Social Security.
it would just be an added, so it has to go on the gross, what would be considered the gross overall payroll.
When I look at page 2 of that book, Monica, I look at the combined total for, non-corrections isn't in there, is it?
And the airport, everything, there's a lot.
Sure, yeah, I see.
Need to vote on that, Don?
Well, the other issue, Michael, might touch on is that 910,000 we added to the budget. And that is also a number that's going to be refined as we end up deciding what contract we're going to sign in the jail. So that could be more or less depending on
Yeah, that's shown.
what the contract is.
Michael, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Michael,
No, I'm good.
Okay,
so
I'm ready for the,
just to be clear, so everybody realizes what we're doing here. This, right now, this is with that 910,000, the commissioners are selling for it's a 34.31% increase, so it's a lot, it's major, we got a lot of work to do.
But again, that 910 alone accounts for 8% of that.
Yeah.
26% up before we added the 910. I think we're ready for the vote, John.
all right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Are we ready to refer the budget to the BAC?
Reluctantly, but yes. I'm gonna move to refer the budget estimates as presented to the Budget Advisory Committee.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now we need to review and approve the unorganized territory budget.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 unorganized territory budget as presented.
Second motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Monica?
So I finally received payment from town of Bar Harbor for in payment for the officer Justin Burnett. And I just want to be clear on I think we want to make sure this goes into the training line. And I just wanted to make you aware that we have received the funds. And I know Bill wanted to have some more discussion on that as
Well,
well.
I'm just curious, what was the bill, total bill from the attorney that we,
$1,068.
and I'd like to see in the motion, Paul, that we pay that bill and the balance with the training.
Is that what would normally,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big amount. We might want to do a transfer sheet, but in this case, I think we can simply we paid the bill already, so we can just
Reimburse the account.
charge, that's right, charge the account to this G account and then deposit the funds into the G account. That's up to you.
so we don't have a transfer sheet to
I do
front of
not,
us.
no.
So I think we should be taking action on a transfer sheet that says that at future meeting would be but that's normally what would be done. And it's-
Yeah, this isn't a big amount, so,
Okay,
but either
Excuse
way.
me, transfer sheet is necessary for what? Taking money out of a G account, we're going to vote to put the money into a G account.
No, but the expense is coming out of the G account. So we'd have to do the
So you're gonna
reserve funds.
deposit the full amount and take it.
Yeah.
Take it out?
Yep.
So today that we can vote to put that in the G account, then later we can vote to transfer money out to pay to
Yes.
reimburse the account.
Yes,
so you just want a motion to,
receive payment from the town of Bar Harbor for the officer buyout to go into account G1301010 training.
say that G130,
G1301010
1310-10.
13010-10.
1-30.
10-10.
That's the training account. So I'll put the funds in there and then I'll do a transfer sheet for the good of the order.
So you just want a motion to move to deposit the funds into G13010-10 training account.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Maintenance,
I'd like to ask the commission to approve the hire of Matthew Morris of Mariahville for the full-time position of custodian, grade 6, step C, effective to September 28, 2024.
So moved.
Second,
all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye,
Thank you, Jane.
thank you.
Excuse me, Paul, has HR reviewed the request for step C? You've looked at that, ma'am?
I think
Pardon?
Dave and I worked
I'm just clarifying that when there's a request for step C, there's exceptional circumstances why the individual should get more than the starting rate. And in the past, we've asked HR to review that and basically give us your blessing that you believe that he warrants step C. So in the future, when you, department heads maybe should be asking you for your consent and review of that. And we're gonna be asking you for your opinion on whether or not that does rise to that level, okay?
Okay, thank you, sure.
Morning.
All right.
You should have received a request to purchase 2 radar units that will be subsequently reimbursed by federal grant funds. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding that. I believe you,
What kind of time frame do you think it'll be till we get the funds from the grant?
yeah, after we submit proof of purchase or payment, typically speaking, I believe it's a couple months behind that we're receiving payment.
I don't. This
Yeah.
isn't-
I believe it's a couple months is what we're currently looking at for the reimbursement.
I think this is the first time I've ever seen a request for the radar units. So I'm just curious, how often you guys ever have to put in these kind of requests? Because to me, it's kind of unusual. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so in years past, we acquired radar units through like Bureau of Highway Safety grants and things like that. They, I am aware that the administration prior, they purchased a radar unit or two here or there over the last few years or handful of years. I don't know if you didn't have a request simply because maybe at that time, the cost or the price point of them was below, was simply below the threshold for making a request. And now that price point has changed just to slightly above that, that threshold. But that's simply why we're here today, is just to seek your permission simply for the reasons that it's above that threshold.
Thank you.
But to be clear, this isn't from ARPA. This is a separate federal grant.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
And we've been awarded the grant.
Yes, it's funds that we have been approved to purchase these radars with. Obviously, we're up here asking permission because of the price point, but also because it would require us to expend the county funds before getting that reimbursement back.
But if we buy them, we've been awarded the grant.
Yes, we have the funds.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to approve the purchase of two Stalker DSR 2X radar units in the amount of $6,300 to be reimbursed by the Stone Garden Federal Grant Funds.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to have discussion of the ARPA priorities. Bill, is this your baby?
The ARPA priorities.
So, I mean, I can start with the basic amount. So at the last meeting, it had been discussed and you transferred some funds from the, well, they were ARPA funds, but had been set aside to try to take care of the broadband issues throughout the county. And yeah, finish those up, complete them. And it was determined at that point that everything had either been specifically appropriated or set aside from those funds for specific remaining projects, or there was nothing else that wasn't being handled in other means that wasn't needed to be done with ARPA funds through the county. So that was a significant amount of transfer as well. Now, we've had several different requests as the weeks get closer to the end of the year, where the funds have to be obligated, both from private entities, other government entities, nonprofits, as well as the most recent request from the legislative delegation, status update of where things are. So we have a couple different projects that we've talked about in the past. I guess the sense is to try to figure out, as we have basically a little over 3 months left, the priorities or pockets that you may be looking to put that last, which is roughly 4.4, give or take, the remaining funds where you kind of have a vision of those and how to disperse them, timetables and all that. So really was a discussion for you to kind of lay out your plan and maybe not formalize or finalize today, but to give a little bit more structure to what's left.
Excuse me, Monica, help me understand the true balance, outstanding balance. In the last report you gave us, there's some lines are in brown.
Mhm.
And these have been, the brown reduces the available amount, is that correct?
The brown is just the amount of the overall total. So it's part of the unexpended balance column. They've been rolled into this spreadsheet, but they just haven't been rolled into the budget in Trio, that's all. So
Okay, so the 200,000 for broadband and the 41,750 has been,
approved,
and it's reduced the total amount, so that,
right,
so the 4,452,000 is the actual available monies today, correct?
yes,
Even after we put all our proposals today, approved.
yes,
Approved.
yes,
So it's net of those rounds.
yes.
And,
I have copies if anyone else wants copies of one.
so we're in the middle of negotiating a purchase and sales agreement on the property for the EOC and the annex at Washington Junction. That's $1,850,000, which reduces that amount to $2,600,000. I really think that's the amount that we're talking about, what we're going to do with it.
Oh, plus we've got some expenses in there, close, so I'm calling that 2 million. You know, that 1,000,008,
Well, we'll know better because later today we'll be talking about specifically what we want to do.
yeah,
I don't know if there's any hope of ever attaching a price to that today, Dennis, but
my point is, that sounds like a lot, but it isn't when you're talking price.
and I think that's the way I feel too, Paul, because I don't think we ought to be rushing to reduce that amount for any reason. We don't really know what this land acquisition and the cost of improving that is gonna cost us, because that can all be taken from ARPA. It should be. We shouldn't be doing that next year when we don't have to tax them.
Oh,
Do it, so.
and there's also some things in the budget, that, as we go through the BAC process could potentially, so I'm not, I know that's been sitting there for a while, but, my priorities are, this is about priorities. My priorities are seeing this project through, and quite frankly, the budget.
Well, we spent about 10.6, so we've spent $6 million on everything from broadband to hazardous pay to nonprofits, we've really, I think we've really served that public well with ARPA money. I think it's time now to save the taxpayer, from having to fund these projects. So I think we should maintain the position right now that we're not going to entertain any request for ARPA funds for the near future,
So we have a handle on it.
till we really know what we're going to do, have a better handle on what we're going to do with the remaining funds.
I don't have any issue with holding off on earmarking anything until we have a better idea of what the actual costs are going to be for the emergency management center. I would say the $6 million that we've spent has primarily been used with the idea of saving taxpayers money on the county side for paying for everything from guns to tasers to automobiles, copiers, pretty much a lot of mundane county expenses have been run through ARPA. So I just want to make sure we're not patting ourselves on the back too hard that we've spent $6 million that has gone directly out to the community, because a lot of it has gone to making sure the tax rolls aren't increased. So we've been doing that. So I just want to make sure that's clear. But right at this point right now, I hate to say it, it's still a little too early for us to see what we would do with some of the remaining funds after we get the major priority done. So in that sense, I think we can agree on that.
Looking for anything more.
No, I mean, it's just, basically that makes it easier when all these people approach me or the
Yeah.
chair to know that that's the answer and that's where we're at and there's nothing else that you're looking from me or anybody else on the staff or administration to be doing up at this point beyond what would be associated with that particular project, so.
Great.
To the discussion on the purchase and sales agreement. I'm not sure when we look at the review on it, what actions are we supposed, do we need to take other actions on there after it was reviewed by the lawyer?
My feeling is that we need to review that. It needs to be done in executive session. And I'll outline that in my motion. But
Okay.
I don't think we're ready to sign it. You know, we need to review that and decide a course of action.
All right.
So I'm gonna move to go in executive session as permitted by MRSA Title I, Section 405(6)(c), to discuss acquisition of real property since premature disclosure of this information would prejudice the bargaining position of the county.
Second the motion, and just by way of discussion for the public, though, we also have information from our attorney that we need to review, which it should be done in executive sessions.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And just by way of the agenda, we're going to come back after that and have a group discussion on what we would do with the property if we did purchase it, more specifically. So if you're interested in hearing that discussion with the after purchase and sales agreement, executive session.
So we're ready to go in?
Thank you.
Okay, then.
All right, we're back from coming out of executive session, nothing to report. Now we have our discussion of the planning for the Emergency Operations Center site.
Do we need Mike, do we need Andrew for this?
I mean, I don't believe so. This would be kind of what we went through yesterday, correct? So,
We met with yesterday.
You say we, the committee.
Well, yeah, Michael and I, and
And I wish you were here, John, 'cause I'll show you this.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, you know.
Good, and just. Okay, gentlemen, my goal here is to just give you a synopsis and description of what's happened, where we are. As you know, we started long ago looking at this EOC site, in fact, had a place on Surrey Road, and that fell through, and other locations were looked at and considered. And then this property came up, and it was decided that it met our needs, and we made some alterations to it to expand beyond what we would need for the Emergency Operations Center. And the county's going to assume a good deal of property here and a couple, 3 buildings that have great potential. That's really, that's where we are. You know about the purchase and sale and what improvements that the Jordans are going to perform for us. But the rest is really going to be up to us to decide. And that's why we published the RFQ that will close on October 11th to get some design help and a team together to help us craft the vision that the county sees going forward. And the The things that we are pretty sure we'd like to see are drawn out in building one, which we call the filer's room. And that's, of course, the meeting hall that's discussed, the EOC that will be constructed, the UT space, RCC space, and IT space in that building, and maybe some heated storage with what remains. And the rest beyond is really, it's a blank canvas. That really is a blank canvas, but we have some idea of what we'd like to do there. And I mean, that's where we are. And we're gonna be seeing proposals from design teams. And once they're selected, I think it's their task to help us bring what we initially see, and maybe also some income potential for the last building. I mean, it's and other entities are considering locating there, or at least gonna meet and talk about it. And by that, I mean the state of Maine, and so we really don't know where that's gonna be headed. That's something that could be a major influence on future plans as well, depending on what the state of Maine decides to do, where they want to build their judicial center. And that's really where we are.
So, that building, that EMA building is there.
That's the log cabin.
Yep.
Yep.
And then the meeting hall, that building is there, that 50 by 90. Now, that, where it says EOC and it's hashed there, that's a new building?
That's the area that will be developed for new space and contain
So,
the tech and other requirements of the emergency operating center. And I think some bathrooms. Well, then bathrooms may overlap the space to have the drainage in the blank area, maybe some floor space in the meeting hall if necessary, depending on. In other words, we're wide open until we get a real scaled plan developing here. That's just concept.
yeah, so the meeting hall portion of it, that can't, the EOC has to be separate. I mean.
Yeah,
we
Andy's,
can't-
his space has to be his space. It doesn't have to be as massive as we thought, but a place where he can have a secure operating space, and also he'll invite other emergency agencies in and have space for that.
But the meeting hall is, obviously would be used by EOC in
But,
times.
yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah, any county function.
In fact, that's gonna accommodate up to, well, 50 people sitting behind tables, which means that's probably 60 to 75 people seated in seats like an auditorium. And so if we ever, for some reason had some kind of a public hearing that we knew was gonna get a lot of people in, we could actually convene on this site. Chuck is going to design it with all the same qualities of recording and audio visual qualities that we had in a meeting room. And so this meeting hall is basically going to be available for a multitude of functions, to include that.
So I understand the concept a little better now. One of my worries is, okay, 5 years, what's this doing to our budget?
Right, operating costs. There are gonna be operating costs, housekeeping, et cetera. I think that the concept includes maybe a space lease that might offset some of that, similar to what we do here. If we had a client, I think Commissioner Clark has mentioned
Well,
parole.
we have a state agency right now that's desperate for space, and they're very interested in us developing space for them. They're talking 3,000 square feet. I don't know what agencies are paying,
No,
for.
why?
But anyways, it's a source of revenue for that last building, which if you recall, we didn't specify buying that building until the developer needed to get rid of it, I guess. And I think it is close enough to our complex that we should have it. It should be under our control. But we don't have any, nobody has suggested any use for that other than perhaps trying to get some revenue from it.
And that's a little over, that's a little over 3,000 square.
They said that's what they needed, was about 3,000.
That's what they need is
And
3,000.
if we charge, what we pay here, what we charge the state, I think it's like 36,000 a year, so.
That would be 36.
Right.
Yep.
That's a 12, that's a 12 cents, we don't quite pay that, it's 11.90 or something, I think.
Well, I can tell you the last place they were in was, they were in front of the police department, Paul, right there, that building's the lease now. And I gotta believe that they were paying a pretty good price for square foot for that.
Yeah, that'd be 3,000 a month.
So,
Which is not a lot, actually.
No, pretty good deal.
So the potential lease space that's listed in the drawing, I guess I'm confused. Is that an existing building right now?
It is.
Or it
That's
is?
the one, that's the one on the edge on it, they're gonna tear the wings off of and close in the end. And actually, we may end up doing more of that, but it's the majority of it is a concrete floor, I would say knotty pine finish and drywall ceiling, so not
John-
perfect, but it's a good starting point.
John, if you look down in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the complex as it relates to the road and everything. Those are the existing buildings right there without the EOC in there or anything. And in the configuration that we have now.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Now, they have a contractor out there, when they tore down the wings, closing in the two ends of that building. Just a temporary closing, just so that, against the weather. He's already done his own personal assessment of the end of that last building, what we call a file building. And his assessment is that's not suitable for renovation into office space. It's, two of those walls are cinder block walls. Looks to me like they've been run into about 100 times with a forklift.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, it's not.
Yeah, so that's why there's a question mark on that end of the building, because he said it's not gonna fall down, but you wouldn't wanna spend a lot of money renovating it into office space, but he said it may be suitable for cold storage, vehicle space, something like that, but it wouldn't be available, it wouldn't be good use of office space, so.
Yeah, it wouldn't take, like electrifying and, the wall surface is not adequate for finishing, for strapping or drywall, it's crumbling block. So it's a rock pile.
But the main portion of that last building, potential lease space, the main portion of that is in good shape.
Yeah, very
It's a nice building, it's insulated. And that would be 65 by
50 something.
Yeah,
20, so it's 55, 75, yeah, probably 65. It'd be 65 by 65, something like that.
That require renovation by us to accommodate a,
Yes,
Would.
has to be, right.
Well,
And we know we'll have electric service there.
They're providing electric to all those buildings right now as we speak, and it's gonna come from the closest pole underground to the building, so. They're putting that in, and the electricians are working there now, so that'll be in.
That's a
it'll
great
be-
point.
it'll be-
Each of these buildings along the back they're putting a series of at least 4 poles, and each will have a trenched service into each building, a 200 amp service, I assume, or something along those lines.
And they'll power to the building, an entrance, then that's up to us from there on, so.
and the meeting hall building, our designation, for IT, UT, RCC, these are all spaces that would be used in an emergency, right, as a backup location? Is that correct?
Yes.
Included meeting hall as well.
If you heard Bob, Bob said, including the meeting room, in other words,
Yeah.
he would be training purposes for other agencies, Bob.
Well, I mean, and then they talked about having a space at the fire academy to use for training, but we also talked about that being a backup site for county operations.
Right.
We had to relocate temporarily that space that we don't have now.
If we had some kind of a situation that it temporarily shut down the courthouse, you know, water main broke or something like that, IT is developing a way for us to move our operations out to this area in the meeting room and continue operating on a limited base, so that's another use for the space.
Is the square footage for Andy at the EMA building, is that gonna be enough for him?
For who?
For Andy,
Yes.
for EMA?
He said
He's
yes.
He's talking about 4 individuals. He's already looked at the building and all he requires is 1 8-foot partition wall separating some of the space in there. So that's an easy renovation for
The log
occupancy
cabin, yeah.
in the log cabin. He's also not going to look at using that though in the next year because he's thinking about using it for a staging area for his architects and contractors while they build the EOC building, which will require us to keep that heated this winter probably, rather than shut it down. We have city water, Ellsworth City Water supplies this site, which is a surprise, but, so that.
A pleasant surprise.
Yeah, a pleasant surprise. So that takes care of our water supply issue, but we're going to have to, there never was a leach field installed in this property, even despite the fact that 4 years ago they put the log cabin in.
Yeah,
And there's never, so that we're gonna have to bear the cost of you know, in that, or George is really part of that, is a complete leach field.
right, which Jones will provide for us. All we'll do the piping to connect to it. In fact, they
He'll-
discovered
he'll-
a 750-gallon tank.
He's gonna put a 1,000-gallon tank
And add a
and
new
pipe
tank
to
for
the
us.
log cabin and to the leach field, and he's gonna stub towards the EOC building, and then we'll pick up the stub when we develop the EOC and the meeting room.
Right, and so we, either by gravity or pump, our new building will have sewer service for adequate for all of our needs in that space.
Interestingly enough, too, is that Dennis has determined that the heating system in the log cabin is sufficient for the EOC and the meeting room.
I assume it's an oil heat,
That's propane.
propane.
It's a condensing gas, lock-in bar, condensing gas boiler, 110,000 BTUs.
You know, the big thing is we're gonna have to be cognizant of. Here, it's gonna be the operating of the building that's gonna, you know, be a major impact to the budget. I know there's potential lease space there, but that's at least a year away, if not 2 or
For sure,
3.
but at that time, we're gonna have housekeeping in the EMA and the EOC and limited housekeeping in the other building to begin with.
Yeah,
to
well,
start with.
yeah, but we're gonna have to heat it, we're gonna have to.
And we'll plow it.
Yeah.
And provide it with utilities. And they also are gonna include a 24 kW emergency generator for us, so that's a plus, which will include a propane field of some type, whether it's a few tanks or whatever, but it would at least provide a base for our energy needs there.
Again, my concern is the operating, you know, that we have built into this budget enough to get us through to,
For sure.
without a revolt.
Andy has talked about his, he's got some resources.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that, what he'd contribute, but
Okay, so when you were talking about other uses last time, that EOC was just a portion of it. You're,
yeah, the main focus is the EOC. at
yeah,
this time.
I see this as sort of intertwined.
It is. There are
Okay.
places where they'll dovetail.
Yeah, this is not new.
No,
We're not moving operations out of here over there other than,
right. And we're developing, and this is something that the team will help us to develop, is the space requirements for IT and RCC and the remainder of the building as well. For instance, we
And
were
when you
thinking,
say space requirements, backup space requirements.
yes,
Okay.
for their backup equipment. In fact, I think IT was 12 by 16. So pretty modest space for that equipment and a workstation.
UT is gonna move their entire office up. This is gonna be their 24/7 office.
Yeah.
They're moving out of the building because all their equipment will be stored in the open space there. Their tractor, all their other stuff.
Yeah,
And so they're gonna move their office. And Millard very seldom is in his office here, so it's not like he's there 40 hours a week in his office, but his office will be in the, what we call the file room, that first with, next to the meeting room. And when you look at that, you'll see that those squares are cut up equally. That's only to designate 4 divisions are in there.
Yeah.
At some point, they'll decide who gets how much of it.
yeah, this isn't a floor plan.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
It's not even,
Where is that stuff now?
where's what?
All Millard stuff?
Millard's tractor and trailer is in his house. But no, I say his house. We've had it here, the tractor's here.
The tractor is here, the trailer, he's got a big bush hog, he's got a box cutter, he's got a drag, and other devices that we've got located at his house, at, I think, one of the lots out on the Nicket Towers Road, maybe the US Military Road, and then some we've got here, which we could.
So, I mean, that would bring all this stuff here. Is that operationally, that works operationally for him?
I think,
I think so, and I think it's better for us, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Have this equipment all over. And, there's 8,000 square feet of space in that cold storage to get that undercover in the wintertime and, and it would be centrally located, have it there because he's got Martin's Ridge as well as Nicket
and
Towers.
we have items that, as we could store there instantly, things that sit out in the weather that should
Okay.
be sitting out in the weather.
We just can't appreciate what it's gonna be like to have storage
Yeah.
space. We just,
So
we've never
summer-
had it.
Wintertime, the zero turn and our outdoor equipment can be stored there.
And a good example is.
Summertime, snow equipment and so forth, swap it out, it's really.
Good
Secure.
example is that we have excellent 2-bay heated garage downstairs. And it's so full of storage items, they can't get into it.
Unusable.
And I'll bet you, without looking, I'll bet 90% of that could go out here in storage. And now you could have a bay to wash your cruiser in the wintertime, you could have,
What's in there now?
everything.
And for everything from evidence to tires to every type of couch you can imagine is a catch-all for items they don't know exactly what to do with.
And
And
Andy
this
took,
space is pretty limited.
Andy took the sheriff out to this open cold area space and whatnot. And he's already seen that, understands what it is.
And sees it as a real,
He said,
Real
I can put
potential
90% of my stuff out there, knowing that I don't need it every day.
he's got trailers, enclosed trailer, side by side, which in the wintertime could be stored there,
The sheriff does.
yes.
I don't know where he keeps the side by side, is that in the garage? I don't
He
think
puts it in the trailer and parks it outside, or in the wintertime, he parks it in the garage in the old tank room.
But Andy's, all that stuff he has at the airport.
Yeah, he's got, and Washington Junction, or Thorson Road rather, he's got a bunch of stuff there. Stuff here, we got a big generator up on top, trailer down here, another trailer to the side. A big antenna, he's got a 60-foot tower that he set up here.
They're
You know-
building the pad for that, right?
They are,
So I have a kind of a basic question, I guess, or explain to me the time frame that is needed for the federal funds for the EMA portion of this.
Well, that is the biggest problem, is that if we strictly adhere to the bidding process for worker service, goods or services over 2,500, we're not going to be able to get this work done by December 31st, or even contracted probably by December 31st. Now,
I think, are you at, is?
oh, he's talking about Andy's.
John's asking about.
are you talking about EOC or are
Yeah,
you
he's
talking
talking
about?
about Andy's grant,
Oh, Andy's still got 3
Yeah.
years.
yeah,
He's got,
through 2027,
So his work just has to be completed by 27.
I believe so.
like 27 years.
And so under that grant, what are they gonna pay? What are they gonna provide? What's the scope of the grant?
That was gonna be my next comment, John, is that there's going to have to be a very strict accounting of who's paying for what. Because Andy has 2.5 years left on his contract, or 3 years, whatever. We have 90 days left on ours. So as we look at what we're going to do here, if it's going to be part of the EOC $2 million grant, then we have some breathing room. But if we're talking about using ARPA funds to renovate this space, we need to get it up go. And John, just handed,
This is just the law.
this is the law on the bids, awards, and contracts and grants under the state law. Basically, it says we have to follow the state's bidding process, you know, when it applies and whatnot. There is a clause in there that says the requirements can be waived under certain conditions. And I notated that one of them is an emergency exists that requires the immediate procurement of goods and services. Now, of course, you think, okay, the furnace broke, that's an immediate requirement, we gotta get that done and whatnot. But if we looked at that the emergency exists, not because the goods aren't necessarily available, but because the funds to pay for those goods are not going to be available.
Or the window's closing.
The window is closing to pay for those.
Didn't Kitty tell us that that was not a valid emergency?
The other issue with this is the fund itself, so
Yeah.
I mean, not saying that this couldn't, you could try to make your argument, but ARPA in and of itself, the fund themselves could potentially say, well, you know, what was your procurement process to
Yeah,
obtain these? And, you know, I mean, we could ask Kitty again, that's a simple kind of yes or no, does she remember? But I mean, I'm starting to go through this stuff again with this project in mind. I mean, that's gonna be your battle, just showing that big due diligence with the money that you were given, so. And that,
And I wonder how much of a battle that's going to be. I mean, when you consider how many entities in the United States got out of funds, they're gonna come up to down East Maine and quibble over, you know, 100,000 that we might have spent without bidding it. And if at least we can hang a hat on to something that meets the straight face test.
well, we can,
Because if we don't, gentlemen, we're not gonna make it. I mean, for example, right now, the contractor that Dwayne Jordan is using to close in the building and whatnot is waiting to build a house. And he said the homeowner doesn't look like he's gonna be ready till Christmas, the first of the year. But he doesn't wanna take on a lot of work because he wants to be ready when the homeowner's ready. There's a guy that could go to work for us today. start doing a lot of the work that we need to renovate the sites in there and whatnot. Now, first of all, I don't know, how long it would take to do specifications, put it out to bid, get your bids back, find a contractor who can drop everything and go to work, you know what I'm saying? All those things, really, those are all the things that we should be giving Congress, saying, we need more time to spend this money.
Well, where could we get guidance like that?
Well, I mean, it also gets back to what an obligation is as well. So I mean, if you had all that and had a contract in place to perform the work, then those funds could be obligated. They don't have to be spent, but
Right.
would have to be obligated. So, I mean,
Also, if you're talking about starting improvements before you've even completed the,
well, I mean, the county's at risk right now because apparently the owner's doing that, and we still haven't sealed the deal. So I mean, that in of itself is a big risk.
That's a risk they take, I agree, but it's a calculated one because the improvements increase the value
I
anyway.
was gonna say, the improvements they're doing would be for
No,
any,
but Michael's pointing out, not their risk, but our risk.
Yeah, but
Um,
for sure.
You know, again, I mean, we could ask Katie to provide opinion, we could talk to the lawyer again, because there were a couple questions that were asked by outside entities and to finally put it to bed. So it's not just me telling them or my interpretation of the law, you know, that's why I asked the attorney, can you weigh in on this as well, so it's clear? And we don't have to keep going back to this to everybody that keeps coming up and asking about it. But gentlemen, I'm gonna tell you that we have to report this back to the feds. So Monica and Monica does the report, so she's attesting to it. Maybe we don't get audited, but a simple phone call from anybody could get you audited. So
Yeah,
I mean, there's ethical, you know, there's ethics, rights, and wrongs. So that's up to the three of you to decide what you're gonna do. But I mean, at the end of the day, if there's certain requirements with an opera, then I think you have to do your damnedest to try to fulfill those.
I agree. What, you know, there's gotta be guidance out there somewhere for,
I mean, we could try the feds, but every time we get an answer, if anybody's tried to do that, they won't give you a definitive yes or no, but we can certainly try.
and while we spend time getting an opinion, we spend time getting bids, we spend time finding contractors, we spend time trying to get obligated funds and whatnot, we wake up December 31st and haven't got it done.
Well, then I'll give you another scenario. What happens a year and a half, 2 years down the roads and this wraps up and the feds come back to you and say, you inappropriately spent X amount of dollars, cut us a check.
So put us on your list of litigation. I can't believe we're gonna be number one.
I'm not saying we are either, but I'm just saying, those are the options that you weigh.
I've never liked the whole notion of what's everybody else doing. I gotta believe that this is going to be, if you started checking around, there's a lot of people, you know as well as I know that many of the entities out there, whatnot, were so undecided about how to spend the money, they hung on to it for a long time. And now they're getting close to crunch time, they're wondering how to get rid of it. And
some of them are decided to return their funds to.
they're kidding. Don't be responsible, and the government doesn't want it back. The government wants it, get it out in the
Yeah,
community.
no, I know, that's.
I think if the commission wanted to move forward that way, if the commission is willing to take that risk and responsibility, somehow, that's how it should be stated. That if, I'll do my due diligence, I'll do the reporting, but it's under the command of the three of you that I'm doing the reporting and that you understand the potential liability going forward.
I don't know what your report looks like, but if you mean that the commissioners determined emergency exists because of the timeline of the available funds, then yes, you have my consent to explain it that way. That's what you're asking.
Well, but I'm sure there's a section where she's attesting
I mean, it's a quarterly report, but I would say from what Michael was saying, the future potential liability would be not necessarily on me, but it would be on the burden of the commissioner. So that's,
I'm willing to take that responsibility.
John, what are you?
Well, I guess I'm still trying to see what we're trying to get paid for by the end of the year, or like, I guess what constitutes money being not earmarked, but committed to it. Like, well, how how detailed is the commitment when we have to have funds committed? Like, we have to have a signed contract with somebody, I assume?
yes,
Okay. And right now, the kind of what I was going back to begin with, the funds that we're getting from the feds on the EOC EMA portion of this, it'll only cover the new building that's gonna go up, the EOC building and the EMA building.
No,
Is that
Andy,
right?
yesterday, he didn't get, he might have got specific, but I don't recall, but there are some things perhaps in the meeting room that he would pay for through EOC because of that. I don't know what else, but there might be
I think
outside
the
the EOC.
bathrooms were mentioned.
Yeah, bathrooms.
And
yeah.
some of the furnishings that each would use.
He,
But most of it would be defined. He also has to abide by the Buy America Act, so it's,
but what we told him is that some of that's going to be mutually used between non-EOC users and EOC. If he's bumping his $2 million and can't afford everything he needs, then we should be paying for the dual purpose items from ARPA. So we won't know that until we get into specifics, but
And the requirement from the Fed on the EOC EMA part of it is that we had to contribute what portion?
25%, 500,000.
Okay. And that can't come out of ARPA, correct?
No, we've already agreed to take CBA.
That's coming out of, yeah, CBA, right? All right.
So to me, the question that needs to be answered, I don't know where to get it answered, is the premise of an emergency exists. Is that a valid one? Michael, I think that's, I don't know if that's a kiddie question or, I think we discussed that at some point, I just don't,
I think it's more a legal question, but
yeah.
I gotta tell you, and I've said this before, I have a problem with taking taking an issue that we have like today, giving it to Michael, asking Michael to review that with an attorney, ex parte of us and whatnot, and then we get the decision back. I gotta tell you, if that attorney had been sitting here discussing our issue in totality and whatnot, with our opinions and whatnot, I'm not sure she would have ended up issuing that opinion. And I have the same problem every time we ask for an opinion. I would like to find an attorney who, first and foremost, when we give him something, said we've done this or we're thinking about doing this, is it appropriate? Does it meet all the standards for law, rules, regulations, standards, and whatever? And if it does, can you start an initiation to help us foster that plan? I don't need an attorney that whatnot starts right off, well, you know, the opposition is gonna say this, and you know you're gonna be facing that. I don't need to know all that. I need an attorney. If I get arrested for drunk driving, I need an attorney that's going to say, I'm gonna try to get you off. And I'd like to see the same attorney that we consult say, I'll let you know if it's legal and if it's appropriate. If it is, I'll help you put together a plan to proceed with that. And we're not getting that from the representation from the attorney. And we're not gonna get it when we ask this. If we brought an attorney in and said, this is the premise that we would like to act on. can you see a legal appropriate way to use this? If he does yes, and I'll work with you on the feds, I'll work with you on any litigation that might come your way. Because I can tell you right now, if we give this to the same attorneys we've been giving them before, you're gonna get a no, this doesn't meet the text. Oh, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that, and they're gonna raise all the arguments that the opposition would use against us.
So what's Pat for?
Well, given those statements, I don't know, because, I mean, the only way you're gonna solve those issues is that we bring an attorney in here and you guys do exactly what you're doing in a public setting and kick those things around.
And I'm not
I
sure
mean-
that's a bad idea.
And that's up to you guys. I mean, the PNS that I gave the attorney, it wasn't generated by me, it wasn't generated by anything. Gave him a document created by somebody else. That's no interpretation on my part. That's no adding to it. or anything.
Michael, this was not a disparity.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, the same thing going forward with other stuff. If you can't trust that the information that's being conveyed to them is correct, then, how do you get around that? Because it can't be the three of you unless you want to do everything in public session and wait 2 weeks. Or you have to pick one of you to do it. So, and right now, I mean, I can go back and cite standards for you and say different portions of the ARPA law and give it to you. How you interpret that is up to you. How an attorney can interpret it is what the law is. Not how to get you out of or around the law. It's the law is the law.
That's his role.
And with the public sector, that's even more valuable than it is in terms of other businesses and other entities. I mean, we have the taxpayers' trust here to adhere to and be cognizant of. But again, those decisions rest with you, but I mean, I don't want this to be at the end of the day, we didn't act on it because Mike told us we couldn't, or Mike said to the attorney this, and the attorney didn't come up with a way to get around it. I mean, you tell me what you want me to convey to them, and I'll convey that to them. But that's gotta come from you.
But it's not what Michael conveys, and I don't have a problem. You make it sound like I'm disparaging you or the attorney getting the information. That's not the case. I think the issue is that the attorney is not here listening to the three of us, trying to understand the plight that we have in front of us and
Max
making
context.
a commitment to try to find a way to help us, see through it.
And I know it's slightly off topic, but on the meeting hall building and the space being divided up in that, so to me, that's like one of the, I don't know, I guess kind of bigger items that needs to get done that's in an existing building that what do you, I guess maybe you and Dennis might know the answer to this, when you think about that building getting renovated, how significant of a renovation are we talking about? Because maybe when we get the designers looking at this, maybe it's really like that building that could get concentrated on, because to me it seems like that's the one that if you wanted to get a written contract on, use the ARPA money for that building, because that one to me has the most community use. And to me, it lines up with truly with the ARPA idea.
Purpose.
And it might be something that we could get under contract in the time frame that would make sense.
Well, I can tell you the way I see it happening is once the team is selected, the design work begins, and then the idea is that they propose a project which includes a cost that you would approve prior to any action, and that cost is what you would base, you would call a contract. That similar to what we did down in the RCC, they come forward with this, here's what's gonna cost you, here's what our team will do. And one of the advantages of that approach was that we had very few change orders because we'd already worked it out in advance. This one might not give us the same, relaxed development feel, but we still could have a pretty good number that you would approve, and that's, once you approve that, I think you could set that number aside, and, as obligated, and I think it would, the project would have, the integrity that you're looking for to proceed and not worry about repercussions. I just had, the best way for me to avoid, an audit or whatever has always been to prepare for it.
So
And
Dennis, like a question too. So the spot that says overhang between the two buildings, is that overhang exist now?
it does, yeah, at one end is, the ends are open, John, so you could
Okay,
drive.
that's right. Okay,
And there's
that's right.
some asphalt and a little strip of soil in between there, and I wanna say it drops 1.5, 2 feet, and then goes up as you go along. So the contour ground drops a bit, but the buildings are level between.
Well, it drops fairly soon because the yard in
does.
front of the building is higher than the floor of the building. So there's a retaining wall between the front yard, I don't know, 16, 18 inches or
Yeah.
something like that. But the underneath the overhang is hot top and it drops to the level of the floor rapidly, which has been a problem because the water has been running from the parking lot through there. They're going to
That's one
redesign
of
the
the
parking lot so
improvements.
it slopes the other way into a trench and whatnot.
Gotcha.
But Dennis, if we did a design build for the meeting room, the file room,
Yep.
did another one for office space for the planer room.
Yep.
That would get two of the biggest projects done. Could we get something signed and in place by the end of the year?
I think it's doable. I think
Because
if
if that's the
we
case, that's-
take a sharpen the focus to those items, once the team's on board, they know the charge going in. Get this thing ready with the price, and if it's local people, I think we really, we could have our own influence on that process.
See, the only
To
other
expedite
problem, there are other little jobs that need to get done. We need to close in the hangar building, the big warehouse, open cold storage that's got 5 sections, 20-foot sections that are open to the weather. Those need to be closed in, overhead doors need to be installed. There needs to be a petition in the log cabin that needs to be done. We probably could incorporate that in the EOC contract, maybe, or not.
For sure.
And
I mean, is it a sole source consideration when we've got a contractor who's already on site working there? I mean,
But what you're talking about, those are things that could easily be bid out.
yes, you're right.
the two major projects. It's still.
Garage doors could be bid
The
out.
little things, yeah, we could get something better together. In fact, take a list of this to our gentleman working there, get a price on it. And if he feels if it's over 10,000, we'll turn a bid around in 30 days.
Well, the 10,000 only affects oral as opposed to rent. You still have to get competitive bidding over 2,500.
Yeah, I say we could
So
put
you're gonna-
together a spec on this and put it out to bid next week. On those 4 items that you just recommended, the petition wall, EMA, closing in the cold storage, the overhang, not a subject, but doing something with that other end that is in
We don't
question.
want to do anything with the overhang anyway, because part of the sloping of the yard is going to include a catch basin there and it
Yeah,
goes.
they're gonna be working there.
Through
that's
there,
true.
so we don't want
So
to-
those 2-3 things.
But the end of the overhang is overhead doors, remember?
Yeah, but remember, the work doesn't have to be done, it's just gotta be obligated.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could seek to get a contract for that done quickly.
Okay, so now if you can agree that this is the scope of the work, this is what we're going to do with the existing building, then we could sit down, Dennis could sit down and whatnot and start putting together specifications into sections. In other words, the meeting room section,
Yeah.
the planer room, the file room, and the planer room with accommodating the potential
Leasehold,
Resident.
resident,
Yeah.
tenant.
tenant. And then perhaps these other catch-all, closing in the
So
hangar.
a three-headed approach.
Yep. And
Because that way we could prioritize this, and I mean, if push came to shove and we could only get one thing under contract, obviously I'd prioritize the meeting hall to be the thing that we make sure we get under contract before the end of the year. Because I mean, we know that we're taking the purchase price agreement out of ARPA. And so, I mean, it's not like we're not utilizing those funds. So I just want to make sure that we use what we can, kind of make the decision quickly and efficiently while still within the guidelines. And I think we could do that if we don't try to turn this into like a grand engineering and architectural scheme to get all these buildings done, together. Like it'll never happen, then you're right. But if you were to try to break this up I think we can get it, at least the things we prioritize done. I think we could get it under contract.
I do too. I think sectioning this out will probably make it work. There is one last item, gentlemen, though, that we need to talk about, and that is there is going to be a lot of incidentals needed for this space. Everything from tables, chairs, kitchen supplies, office equipment, desk, and so on. And can we start having department heads coming to us with their needs so that we can buy this equipment out of ARPA this fall, as opposed to waiting till it's developed next year, and having to buy it out of the budget?
Well, I think that department heads should be doing that now and sort of inventorying that. And as we get adhere to this, the guidelines spelled out in law, and I think that we can get this together. I really do. I
Well,
think,
I just want to be able to tell the department heads, like, Chuck needs racks, for example,
well,
so.
Chuck should have an inventory of what he,
And that's why I said,
you
can
get a lot
he
of that
come to
together.
us, once he gets his inventory together and said, this is what I need in my space for the new building? It's going to cost, whatever. And I'd like to have the authority to buy that, pay for it out of ARPA. Can he do that?
Well, my only question is on some of this idea is potentially, can you have it under contract but not take receipt of it? Because I mean, where are you gonna store stuff in the meantime? I mean, do we really have storage space for some of the things
The
that you're
open,
suggesting?
in the open cold storage space. Once we get that closed in and whatnot.
Once it's not open.
Yeah.
Once it's not open, right?
I mean, that's one of our first jobs, is we want to get that buttoned up before
Yeah.
snowfall and whatnot. So I mean, yeah, no, we've got a perfect chance to buy everything we need, get it under good storage, dry storage and whatnot until it's actually needed. The key is to be able to buy it while we still have ARPA funds, so it doesn't come out of the budget.
I agree. I'm not sure I would be actually buying it till we're further along, but we can,
You gotta buy it before December 31st.
no, you have to have it obligated.
Yeah,
Well,
if you've had it cataloged and priced out,
Well, yeah, but you've gotta have like purchase order.
Contract with it.
Yeah,
It has to be more of a legal.
Yeah.
you're so close to buying it, you might as well buy it.
Well, for me, I can get a quote by something that 30 off to buy it within 30 days. Or the
Yeah.
quote will expire.
Okay, I'm just saying, I don't know what the difference is between buying it, and getting into good quality storage, or just having it waiting there.
yeah, I'd say you're gonna look probably at a marriage of those two things.
we
If
gotta
you
make,
have it in hand, it's done, you got a
If you,
receipt, right,
if you've
Mike?
got the space, I mean, the ideal thing, if you had the space, is you
Take a look.
purchase it, you've taken any question on it, and you've got it, but question would become, again, just,
Anything you're encumbering or holding up
Process.
is a little more.
yeah, you would have to show that there's an actual
I wanna make sure,
obligation.
before we buy anything, I wanna make sure that this is happening.
Right. Oh, for sure. Maybe in the closing, we can be ready to go.
Yeah.
All that is pending closing date.
Yeah.
So if you wish, wanted to look at this, if each department head has to look at what they want to put together, then arguably, if you ended up authorizing them to go ahead and do that, they could put together the bid specs,
Yeah.
send them out to people and bring them back to you to act on in the future. If you
Yeah.
want to give them that authority without having to draw them up and then you approve it, just saying, you give them put together your list, draw up an RFP and get it out there in terms of accordance with our
Yeah.
policy, and then let them come back to you with whatever the results are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you accept a minimum of 3 bids, 3 quotes? And that's the statute, is 3, but we do accept, so in other words, Chuck said, I've got 3 vendors out there I can get quotes from, and I'll get quotes for this equipment from 3 and bring you those quotes and with a recommendation. Will you accept that as opposed to I gotta send it to the whole world?
And one of the problems Chuck has is many of his vendors
So
Yeah. bid and they're like, we're not bidding on anything. It's not what we do. And so it takes them out of the running anyway,
But they will give them a quote.
but they will give them a quote.
So he can say, give me a quote for this thing, all right, fine.
I think you can adhere to this.
Every effort can be made, that's right, yeah. Let's get at it.
John, are you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It might sound like, I don't mean to disparage the department heads or anything in saying this, but I also want us to, use some restraint. Just because this is money that isn't coming out of your budget doesn't mean. I just want us to careful how we're spending the money, that's all. Make sure it's appropriate, nothing's in excess. That's all.
No frivolity.
Well, and
Circle slash.
think of future
Yeah.
budget.
Like I can imagine in the meeting hall, you guys are gonna wanna have a printer in there. So that's fine, but the meeting hall can have one printer that everybody has access to, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Not 3 printers, right?
Do you think you have a path forward, Michael?
I mean, based on this, if I understand it, the department heads will work ASAP on developing their list of what they need
For this project?
for this project, yep. And Dennis will be working on the 3 larger.
I'm gonna take everything that's not encompassed in our design build team, the incidentals that we know about, and put together a spec on it and have it ready to go on the street. And if it, like the closing in of this open storage area, is that $10,000?
No.
I don't think so. I think you'd probably do it for 6 or 8. Just
Oh, I was
close it
gonna
in.
say,
I mean, just to put some paneling up there to keep the weather out. What we finish with it, do we wanna do this work
I'd like
and then
to,
tear it down and start again
I
when we
think
get there?
we do the job, put the 3 overheads in that we want, the man door that we want,
So-
and so we.
That's the spec, not a patch and replace.
That's not a difficult spec.
No.
It's not gonna be insulated doors.
Those doors on the front are gonna be really expensive.
Yes,
I just put 2 garage doors in, pretty good size, and it was $12,000.
so we're talking
That's good.
60, we're talking 16, 20 footers.
Well, the opening is 20, so I don't need to.
So it's a 16 foot
16 foot
door.
door,
Yeah,
10
that's,
foot high.
they're 5,000-6,000 piece.
All right, go to work.
Very good.
Michael, do we cover anything else here?
I don't believe at this point. I mean, they're coming back to you, so it's not like anybody's taking any action other than putting
Yeah.
these together.
That's the way I feel. But you're comfortable with,
Well, I guess the only other question is how much you want me to look into the emergency.
I think we found a way around it, Michael. I mean, we may have to talk about it again Christmas Day, I don't know.
Well,
it's a question worth asking. Mike.
Dennis, did you say you already have an RFQ out there for,
yes,
That's for the EOC.
That's for the- Well, it's a combination. EOC is the primary, but also, development of the lease space and a limited impact on the storage space. Very, very limited. And that's gonna be, a part of that is gonna be, the concept is maybe we could put together an idea that finishes out these spaces, builds a new space, and then we have a piece in front that ties it all together. But we'll know more when we select the team.
See, the language here, Bill. The director is authorized by the governor, and the governor doesn't make purchases. Exist. In the opinion of the governor or the governor's designee. What's
Remember, you have to look at the county bid process, and it says we'll follow the states when practical, I forget the word they use, but what the state does doesn't always affect us because of they're a state agency, but you have to, just whatever it does applies to us. What does apply to us is the $2,500 threshold, which price, that should increase to 10,000 today's pricing, but this hasn't been changed for 40 years. It's a fact that you can have oral up to 10,000 oral bids, quotes.
It hasn't changed in 13 years, at least.
2,500 hasn't. I guess I started in 81 and it was 2,500 then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here it says 99. Goes with that portion.
I mean, I don't know what should change.
All right, do we have anything else? Are we done with our discussion?
Adjourn.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. See you later, guys.
Hope you feel better.
Yep.
Sounding a little better than when we started.
Thanks.